Welcome to the final day of CABSAT, and welcome back to the official CABSAT podcast powered by Northtelecom. Joining me now is Mark Holmes, who's the Senior Editorial Director at Via Satellite. Welcome, Mark. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me in. I know I'm the last one, so I'm going to try and make it as entertaining as possible.
Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Via Satellite?
Delighted to. I'm the Senior Editorial Director of Via Satellite. I work for a US publishing and events company called Access Intelligence. We do the world's biggest satellite show called Satellite in Washington in March. We also do another show, CyberSat, Cybersecurity and Satellite, which is now 8 years old. We call it the OG of cyber and satellite shows, the original gangster. And, you know, Via Satellite is a magazine that's almost 40 years old. And I think it's, pretty well known in the industry. And I've been the editor for almost 15 years now. Wow.
And hopefully many more.
Yeah, well, as long as they'll have me. I mean, it's a great honor. As I said, working for a US publishing and events company has been a great education for me personally. I get to work with some very dynamic, innovative, entrepreneurial people in the US. And, we have this mission where we want to provide a whole suite of satellite intelligence and products to the market. And even though the US is our home market, it's important for us to, we're a global organization. Via Satellite is a global publication. And that's why we're here at CABSAT this week.
Well, glad you guys are here. What really brought my attention to you guys is a cover of one of your magazines is this, Women in Satellite, which you don't really hear about in the industry. What motivated you to do such a cover and such a story?
Well, the story is about 2 years old. And I remember like 2 or 3 years ago when it was on an International Women's Day. And there was a lot going on and you would see lots of updates on LinkedIn. And then I sort of thought, why are we not doing anything? Why do we just pretending? Why are we just going on with normal life? So I got together with my colleague, Rachel Jewett, who is an outstanding editor. And then we sort of decided we need to do more. So we set out a nomination form where people could write testimonials of their colleagues. And so we put that out. It was tremendously popular, much more popular than we probably expected it to be. In fact, it was so popular that the 2 times we've run this story, we've actually run a follow-up story in the April edition as well as the March edition. And what's important to me is it's in our March edition. Our March edition is our biggest edition of the year because this is the edition that goes to the satellite show, our big show. So we want to put a lot of high-profile content in this edition. In terms of it being a cover story, we looked at it this year and we, over the last few years, the cover story has been 10 hottest companies in satellite, which has been one of our most popular stories ever. Every year, the analytics, go up and up. I always liken it to an Adele album. It always comes back in the charts.
Yeah.
It never leaves. It's always one of the most popular stories. But we just felt, this year we felt we wanted to make a statement. It's one thing doing a story. It's another thing saying, okay, we're going to put it on the cover. And then interestingly, when you make it the cover story, you have to make sure that the actual cover reflects a diversity in women as well. So, you're seeing, different, you're seeing, older, younger, and so we feel like it represents, we felt it was long overdue. We all know this has been a male dominated industry for many, many years. But it can only change if, we give, and not just women as well, but young people, we give other people other than C-suite a platform to be a part. And I always say, I want Via Satellite to be the community publication of satellite. I emphasize that word community a lot. And we can only be a community publication if people like yourself and others feel that you can be a part of the stories within Via Satellite.
Yeah. Yeah, So explain, we were having this conversation yesterday, explain to our audience what is a community publication and what can they expect from such a publication?
Well, traditionally, if you look at B2B media, most of the interviews, by and large, have been with C-suite. So a CEO, CFO, COO. So if you're interviewing people about strategy, you talk to the executive that's responsible for that strategy. I mean, that hasn't necessarily changed. I think what we've tried to do, when I talk about a community publication, we talk about establishing an emotional connections with our audience. And we want people to, I think some of the most fascinating stories we write are about people.
Yeah.
Yes, we can talk about trends in LEO, trends in multi-orbit, how Starlink is impacting the market. But there's, people like to learn about other people in the industry and hear their stories. So, the publication has to give a platform for that. It has to find stories, whether it's celebrating women in satellite and some of the other stories we do, and it gives people an opportunity to be a part of it. And I want anyone, whether they're just starting out in the industry or whether they're 30, 40 years in or midway through, I want them to feel that at some point there's going to be a story that they can be involved with, because these are very popular stories. I mean, again, I go back to the submission process. We had over 70 submissions for this. And, if you think how long a magazine article is, and that's a lot.
It's a whole magazine in itself.
And it's only 2 years in. I mean, it's not like this story has been going for 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
So the market was telling us, the community was telling us that we want to get involved in these stories.
Yeah.
And I like, and especially at a show like CABSAT, I think this cover stands out. I think when you look at all of the other satellite publications here, our cover looks so different. It looks so unique. And
it is. It's very unique. I agree that it is quite a diverse cover, diverse people, diverse ages, diverse races. And that's what's nice, that it feels like everybody can feel that there's a role model for them here in this cover.
Yeah, I mean, I think I explained to you yesterday, I had 2 daughters, and I always feel like one of the big issues in this industry is getting young people to be a part in our industry.
Yeah.
But I think you're only going to get more young people involved in our industry if you give them role models, people that they can look at and say, think, yeah, I could be her. I like the way she looks, the dresses, talks, the way she carries herself. And I think young people especially like role models that they have a certain style and they can think, and look up to. And I think, if we can do some good, if we can provide a platform, if we can, show that the industry is full of dynamic, talented young people, women and others, then hopefully we're doing some good in the industry as well.
And great. I really like your value, and I really like this approach that you take around being the community publication versus the generic old school, give us an article, we'll type it up, or we'll interview just your sea levels. I like that you're humanizing the publication.
Well, if you think about it, the satellite industry, I mean, it is a little bit of a cliche, but it affects people more than people realize, and not just on a day-to-day basis. When you look at some of the big issues of the future, like climate change as an example, satellites and satellite technology or space technology is going to be front and center of how we as humans, combat the worst effects of climate change.
Yeah.
So, it's very, very issue based. I mean, it's, you see the images in warfare and you see the effect of things having. I mean, the images now from satellites are tremendous. They're not just like sort of little dots.
And pixelated.
Yeah.
You can barely see it.
And it's an industry that is, I mean, it has really changed. I mean, when I started out in the industry 15 years ago, it didn't have a lot of young people. It didn't have a lot of women. It wasn't an attractive industry to young people. It was very much sort of an old school, I called it a buddy industry. But it's only going to progress if we get brilliant young people involved, and people feel that there's a place for them in the industry. I think one of the misnomers was you can only be in the industry if you're this high-level engineer and you've got this amazing engineering expertise, but there's actually many different types of jobs, many different types of opportunity. And I think perhaps over the years, the industry hasn't been very good at communicating that. And so we need to change things, whether it's through podcasts, whether it's through doing different things within publications. We, as someone who's in media, we need to use all the tools at our disposal. And these stories are very popular. I mean, these stories are some of our most read stories. Yeah. Doesn't mean we still do lots of C-suite interviews. We do lots of big exclusives. We get a lot of interviews before others, but people like the balance. They like the balance of those stories mixed with what I call the human connection story.
Yeah.
And I think we're only going to do more of them because people want to be involved, and we're happy to, we're happy to be that publication. When all the other publications go left, we will go to the right. And I just want to bring one other story, because I know we spoke about it yesterday, but over the last 2 years, we've created the first satellite industry playlist on Spotify.
Yes.
So we went to a number of high-profile figures within the satellite industry, including the likes of Gwyn Shotwell and others, and said, what was your most played song of the year? We had about 15, 16 people take part each time. And then we created the playlist on Spotify and sent a link. So if people wanted to go and listen to the actual playlist, see the choices, they could go. And again, we marketed that through Instagram. So, we're always trying to be, I think as editors, you always want to be creative. Doesn't mean everything you do works. There are times when things maybe don't work the way you hope, but I think you always want to take chances. And I think especially when you're a publication that's almost 40 years old, it's important that you don't have that reputation that you're like the establishment. You're that old traditional publication that's been doing the same thing for 40 years. So you have to smash that to pieces. You have to okay, we have to be a startup. We have to try and look at things differently. We have a very dynamic editorial team. As I said, Rachel Jewett, who works with me, Jeff Hill. And so, we're constantly thinking of ideas, things that we can put together. The new one we're doing is Rise in the Stars. We're going to try and, again, put the focus on people under 35, younger generation. I mean, we're still thinking the final format, because we want to think, hopefully we're going to do it with a little bit of a twist. We're just figuring out what that twist might be. But we want to do stories that resonate with people. I mean, I want you to read an edition of Via Satellite. And there's 3 things I want to do. I want to inform, I want to educate, and we want to entertain you as well. So we want there to be something in there that you're going to get something out of. Yeah. If we can do that, we're hopefully doing all right.
Succeeded then.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining me. And our conversations can just continue on and on and on for hours. It's always interesting, and I like that you take into consideration the people, where these people are, not just an industry. And I wish you the best of luck.
No, well, again, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for anyone that's listening in, and please check out the sort of Via Satellite as well. Check out our events, Satellite and CyberSat as well. We are a community, and we're very lucky. We're part of an amazing community that does so much good work that benefits humanity, and we shouldn't be shy in. I sometimes think our industry has a bit of a PR problem, and I think we shouldn't be shy in telling our stories and showing the good work of our industry. So yeah, please feel free to reach out. Thank you for inviting me on the podcast. Wishing you and the rest of Northtelecom a successful show, and hopefully see you in Dubai again very soon.
Thank you. Hopefully.
Thanks.
Take care.